Hello, it's Mrs. Conway. So hopefully now you've gotten proficient at using law of sines to find a missing side. So the next piece that you'll need to be able to do is use law of sines to find a missing angle. So what that will look like is you'll get a problem like this, where you know two sides of a triangle, one of the opposite angles, and you're trying to find the other opposite angle. So the first thing you'll want to do is figure out which angles go with which sides. So if we look here, we've got angle A. Oops, I put my X in the wrong spot. X should be with, we actually couldn't do this problem with law of sines if it was, okay. So the first thing we want to do is identify which goes with what. So if we look here, the angle we're looking for is X degrees, which is at C, which means 1.2 is the side that goes with that angle. So what I'm going to do, since I'm finding an angle instead of a side, is I'm still going to set up a proportion, but now instead of putting the side length on the top, I'm going to put the angles on the top. So I'm going to put sine of X in the numerator and 1.2 in the denominator of the fraction. Then I'm going to look which other two pieces of information I know. I know that B is 115 and that the opposite of that is 3. So that means I can use law of sines to solve this problem, because if I didn't know an angle and a side opposite of it, I wouldn't be able to use law of sines. This would be a law of cosines problem. And B, this is which ones go together. So I'm going to put sine on the top, because you have to be consistent. If you're going to put sine on the top on the first proportion, you have to put sine on the top on the second, of 115 over, so there's our proportion that we've set up. Now we just have to solve for X. Well, in this proportion, X is on the left side, so I need to get rid of this 1.2. So since it's divide 1.2, I'm going to multiply by 1.2. So those cancel, and I'm left with sine of X equals, and then at this point, you might want to put this in your calculator, although if you want to just leave it as a nasty fraction, you can. But I'm going to put it in my calculator. Sine of 115. Make sure you close the parentheses here. If you don't close the parentheses here, it's going to give you the wrong answer. Divided by 3 times 1.2. And that gives me 0.36253. You want to keep as many decimal places as you can here, because if you lose decimal places, you might get the wrong answer, because it's such a small number, more of the decimal places are going to matter. So then in order to find X, we are going to have to recall, how do we undo sine? What's the opposite of sine? Opposite of sine is inverse sine. So you're going to take the inverse sine of both sides of the equation, which essentially means you're just going to, in your calculator, put the inverse sine of the decimal that you just found. So I'm going to go over to my calculator. I'm going to find inverse sine. That's that little sign with the -1. Some people also call it arc sine. And I'm going to put in the decimal that I just got. Well, depending on the calculator you use, you can just click up and grab that number and put it back in. Or your calculator might have an answer. See, there's an A and S above the negative sign here, so I could have hit Control A and S and it would have given it to me as well. So if you have that option, it's going to save you some typing, and it increases the accuracy of your answer. So I click enter, and I got 21.255. Let's round to the tenths place here. Again, depending on the question, you'll need to read carefully and see what place you have to round to. 21.3. And then anytime you're using inverse, that means you just found an angle. So it's 21.3 degrees. So there is my answer. And if we look over here, hopefully that kind of makes sense. It definitely needs to be small, because 115 is going to use up most of our 180. So there you have it. There's how you use law of sines to find missing angles in triangles. So again, this is where practice is good. There's a worksheet that you can do to practice this. So go ahead and get to work and do some practice. Good luck.